All right, let's get this Christmas Kino going. Five differences between a Slovak Christmas and an American Christmas. Let's get into it. Veselé Vianoce a šťastný Nový rok. My name is Nico and I'm an American living in Bratislava, Slovakia. And today I wanted to talk a bit about some differences between a Slovak Christmas and an American Christmas. Now there are some differences that I've noticed since living here, and we're going to go over 5 different things today. Now, this may not be the most comprehensive, but I think these are like the 5 main things in no particular order, except the final thing I think is the weirdest or the biggest difference, at least for me as an American. So let's get into it now. So our first difference, starting at number 5, would have to be stockings. Now, I've noticed here that the Slovaks, they don't really put as much emphasis on having stockings up. Now, what are the stockings exactly? Well, they're basically like the Christmas-themed, really large socks that you can put maybe over like a fireplace or a staircase or on the wall or just somewhere where it's going to be a good spot. And I was a little surprised to chat with some Slovaks here and realize that they don't really put the stockings up around their house as much. Maybe some do, I don't know, I haven't chatted with any, but it seems like the Christmas stockings are not really a thing. Now, what you would put in those Christmas stockings, at least in America, is you could put smaller things in there, like maybe candies, fruits, some kind of knickknacks, like small toys.
This is a knick-knack, paddywhack.
Small gifts. So the stockings are kind of more reserved for smaller gifts. Growing up in America, we definitely put stockings around the house. Good spots were on the wall, or at my place, we used to put them on the railing that was next to the staircase. So that way, as you're coming up the stairs, you could see the backside of the stockings. And then once you're in the top room, then you could see the stockings there, hopefully full of things. Now, I was curious as to why stockings are popular in America, but not as much in Slovakia. And after doing a tiny bit of digging, that seems to be because, well, when Dutch settlers came to America in the 1500s, they brought some traditions with them. So it sounds like Dutch children would actually put straw, like in, I guess, socks or like sacks, and then put them above or near the fireplace to give to Sinterklaas for his reindeer. So Sinterklaas being kind of an early rendition of Santa Claus. Isn't that interesting? So I guess that's why stockings are more popular in America. The tradition has gone on up until now, and why they're not as popular in Slovakia. The next difference has to do with Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and which one is considered the more primary Christmas day. Now, when I say that, I kind of mean, which is the day that you're going to be opening presents, or which is the day that you're going to be having Christmas dinner, or, what's the more significant Christmas day? Now, first, I'll tell you about the American Christmas. So in America, I don't think it's uncommon to have 2 Christmas dinners, like one on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, but I would say that if a family is going to have one Christmas dinner, it's more primarily going to be on Christmas Day. Christmas Eve is more kind of like you're preparing for the next day, so to speak. And then also when it has to do with presents are always opened on Christmas morning. So like the 25th, the morning of the 25th. Growing up, that can be kind of hard, like if you're a kid or like when you were a kid, because you would have such anticipation for the presents because you would have like your Christmas tree, and then you would see the presents under the Christmas tree and you're not allowed to open them. And it was just such this like teeth chattering kind of moments where you would just have to wait and try to fall asleep, try to make sure that there's cookies and milk and all that good stuff for Santa Claus on Christmas Eve, the night before, so that maybe he would come in the middle of the night and give you more gifts. But the difference between an American Christmas and a Slovak Christmas is the Slovak Christmas, Christmas Eve seems to be more the primary day. That's when Slovaks will have their Christmas dinner, and also when they will open their Christmas gifts. So I think it's kind of nice that they open their Christmas gifts on Christmas Eve, because then you have a little bit more time to enjoy the gifts while you have the holiday, break. And also you don't really have to suffer from the anticipation of having to wait until the next day if you're someone who's, impatient with that kind of thing. But I wouldn't really say that one is better over the other. It's kind of just two differences. As for the previous item about the stockings, I definitely like that American Christmas has Christmas stockings. That's a nice thing. Difference number 3 has to do with the amount of days that are celebrated between an American Christmas and Slovak Christmas. Now, an American Christmas is 2 days, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. But the Slovak Christmas has an additional day 3, which is pretty interesting. I actually really like that. That's really cool. So this day 3 can sometimes be called the Feast of Saint Stephen, Christmas Day 3, or Boxing Day. I don't really know why it's called Boxing Day. Maybe someone can let the rest of us know in the comments section. But there are 3 days of a Slovak Christmas. Now, I really like that because I enjoy Christmas and I enjoy eating Christmas food and just the whole atmosphere and the vibe and everything. So I think it's great that in Slovakia they have 3 days of Christmas. And it seems like it's treated a little bit like Christmas Day, like the 25th. So it's just is another day to spend time with family, maybe friends, and have Christmas food and just enjoy the atmosphere, music, all that good stuff, your presents even. So that's really nice. The Christmas season, I think, starts as early as like maybe even December 1st, but a significant day is December 6th, which is the day of St. Nicholas, which is also my name's day. And then the season ends on January 6th. So it still is kind of Christmas time, even though it is post-Christmas. Okay, so these last 2 differences I think you will enjoy because they both have to do with food. And so for the second to last topic, it's going to have to be about the sweets that are had during Christmas time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of list off a few items because there's kind of a lot of different types of foods, different types of sweets that can be had in both versions of Christmas. So I'm going to go ahead and read a list of the Slovak ones and then the American ones. So for the Slovak ones, we have medovniki, which are spiced honey cookies. And they often have like some kind of glaze or icing on the top of them. The next thing can be, how do I pronounce that? Štedrak. It's like a Christmas Eve cake. It looks like it's a layered cake filled with plum jam, poppy seeds, walnuts, and even farmer's cheese. So that's something that they have on Christmas Eve. Next, we have something called pupaki. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but they're tiny yeast buns that are covered in ground sesame seeds, honey, and butter. So those maybe can be good. Next, we have something called serdiečka, which are, I think, heart-shaped cookies. Says that they're heart-shaped shortbread cookies filled with currant or strawberry jam. That also sounds very tasty. Now, the last Slovak Christmas treat is something called medové rezi, and otherwise known as honey cake slices, maybe in English. But these honey cake slices are honey-flavored pastries. They're supposed to be very rich, and they're often stuffed with pudding and jam, and can be glossed with chocolate sauce. So that sounds like something that is totally up my alley. In contrast, the American treats, those could be gingerbread cookies, sugar cookies, fruitcake, peppermint bark, and even eggnog. Even though eggnog is not something you eat, it's more like a sweet drink. But I would say that's pretty popular in America. The gingerbread cookies from this list, I would say gingerbread cookies are also popular in Slovakia. You can buy them at Christmas markets, and they come in, all shapes and sizes. Often they're shaped as like a, gingerbread man or a Christmas tree or something like that. Growing up in America, I would have gingerbread cookies basically every Christmas. A couple other items that are common to eat for an American Christmas that I think is somewhat distinct compared to Slovak Christmas can be apple pie and pumpkin pie. And especially pumpkin pie. Pumpkin pie, I feel like, is God tier, especially if you put whipped cream on it. Maybe even have some vanilla ice cream on the side if you want to get really decadent with it. That's something that I have noticed is not very common at all in Slovakia, and I don't think in Central Europe either. So that's one thing that I was a little bummed out about that I missed from the States, but thankfully my mom made pumpkin pie for me to have this year, and it was very good. If you have not had pumpkin pie before, I highly recommend you try it. It is God tier, chef's kiss. Overall though, I can't really choose what's going to be better, the American Christmas treats or Slovak Christmas treats. I think they're both equally as good, just a little different, which makes sense, but they're all very delicious, very seasonal, and very tasty. Okay, so I have saved the best for last because to me, this is the most significant difference and most noteworthy difference between American Christmas and a Slovak Christmas. Now, first, I will just tell you about what is typically eaten for a Christmas dinner in America. So it's a little bit similar to a Thanksgiving Christmas. You can have turkey, maybe like roast beef, or like a Christmas ham. That can be really good. And various assortments of sides to go along with that, but those are like the kind of main meats that you would have. And again, maybe like pumpkin pie for dessert. But the Slovak Christmas, they have something else, and it was a little off-putting to me at first when I realized this. But in Slovakia, what they primarily eat for dinner is actually fish. Now, I was a little grossed out when I first realized this. Now, the reason why I say it's a little off-putting to me, first let me say I don't dislike fish. I do like fish. But to me, fish doesn't really scream comfort food, and especially not for Christmas. So I was like very hesitant about this. I have not had fish for Christmas until this year, in previous years that I've been here. And well, it was just a little surprising, a little shocking. But at the same time, I did try it this year, and actually I enjoyed it. I liked it. What I had for Christmas dinner at my family's place was fried fish. Then we had rezen, potato salad, zemiakovi, and mushroom poliauku, potato and mushroom soup. And it was all very good. But this made me a little curious as to why Slovaks eat fish for Christmas or for Christmas Eve dinner. And so I looked into it, and so I'm going to read a little bit about it and give you some historical context. So, the practice of consuming fish on Christmas Eve dates back to the 13th century when Catholic traditions dictated that meat should not be eaten during fasting periods. Fish was considered an acceptable alternative as it was classified as not meat by the church. This was led to an establishment of fish, especially carp, as a central dish for Christmas Eve dinner, known as Štedrý deň, or Generous Day, in Slovakia. Now, something else that is a cultural tradition around having the fish is not just eating the fish on Christmas Eve, but I guess how it's prepared, because families can purchase the fish from markets or certain sellers that may be in town, or especially, back in the day, they would buy it from like a little shop that's selling the fish specifically for Christmas dinner. And the interesting part of the state of the fish that you're buying it in, it's not like it's prepped and it's like on ice and you got to put it in your freezer and, oh, we're going to cook this on Christmas Day. People would buy actual live fish, like live carp. Then they take it to their home, they get the bathtub ready, and then they put the fish in the bathtub maybe a couple days like before Christmas Eve dinner, and then they would have to then kill the fish and serve the fish fresh for Christmas Eve dinner. Now, I was very surprised when I first learned about this. It's a little odd to me, but I guess in the historical context and for the cultural tradition, it makes sense. But it was just very funny for me to hear, from my mom. She would tell me like what Christmas was like when she was young here in Slovakia. And she would tell me how, her dad would go to the market to buy the live fish and then bring it home. And they would have it in the bathtub for a couple days. And by the time Christmas Eve comes around, she would be kind of like sad and bummed out because, then the family has to kill the fish, which would kind of be like a pet for a couple days, in preparation. So maybe some kids would, might get attached to the fish. Maybe some wouldn't, but that was something that was pretty funny for me to hear. And for a moment, I thought, oh, maybe this is just something that they did back in the day, like when my mom was a kid. But I have a student, like an English student, and she's 10 years old, and she was telling me how they did the same thing for Christmas at her grandparents' house. So they did the same exact thing where they bought a fish, put it in the bathtub, and had it in the bathtub for a couple days. And then they would have to kill it and serve it fresh. Which, for the freshness, like, I gotta say, it makes a lot of sense. I would prefer to have fresh fish for Christmas Eve instead of something that's like old, But just that whole cultural tradition was very surprising, somewhat shocking, but definitely interesting to me. So to have fish on Christmas, it has to do with the religious aspect of Christmas. Well, that's all I've got for today. I hope you enjoyed the things that I talked about, the differences between a Slovak Christmas and American Christmas. I'm sure I didn't go over everything. Maybe the Slovaks can let me know down in the comments, like what are some cultural traditions for your Christmas that you do, and maybe I didn't talk about it. And maybe the Americans can also tell me what are some things that I maybe didn't cover. And also, from anywhere in the world, tell me how you spent your Christmas, or if you do not celebrate Christmas, tell me what you did for this holiday season. So that's going to be about it for today's video. I'll see you in the next one. Vesela Vianoce a šťastný Nový rok. Ciao for now.